You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I'm your host, Marina Buksov, and I'm a functional medicine pharmacist in New York. I'm also a clinical herbalist and an integrative health coach specializing in mindfulness and empowerment. I'm on a mission to transform the way we approach healthcare by bridging the wisdom of traditional medicine with modern practice. And in this podcast, I will be highlighting guests who do just that. I'm constantly inspired by them, and I know you will be as well. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast. I have with me today another special guest, and her name is Dr. Nicole Robinson. She's always felt a calling to help others in the area of health and wellness. At the age of 9, she was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease that was put into remission using conventional medicine. She never forgot the kindness shown by her doctors and wanted to pay it forward. This passion for health took her to the medical field. She graduated with a Doctor of Pharmacy degree from St. Louis College of Pharmacy in 2011 and began working in the U.S. Army as a pharmacist. Upon completing her time in the service, she began working for CVS Pharmacy in 2017. In 2020, Dr. Robinson was introduced to the world of functional medicine, and within a few months, she achieved certification as a practitioner through Functional Medicine University. She quit her job at CVS and branched out on her own. All this time, she recognized that there was still some unresolved issues in her health. So using a holistic approach, she started doing the work, seeing the results, and helping others do the same. She currently owns a one-on-one practice where she inspires, educates, and coaches women to the healthiest version of themselves. Awesome. Well, Nicole, welcome to the show. And I'd love to start out with what I ask everybody. And this is really just about how you grew up and how you came into this work. And in your case, that was already evident in the bio. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more details about that journey.
Yeah. So, gosh, I feel like this started so long ago for me. So, I mean, even as a kid, I had, a chronic health issue, an autoimmune disease that was considered so rare. And honestly, it took years for doctors to even figure out what was going on. And back then, conventional medicine was, still the mainstream. And my mom really did everything she knew to try to help me. She did try a few natural things, but what she was trying, I didn't really respond to. So we just continued on the conventional route, which was high-dose steroids. So that got rid of the symptoms. But when I look back at it now, I really feel like a lot of the problems that I developed as I grew older were probably stemming from those high-dose steroids. I'm always wondering, like, what did it do to my gut? What did it do to my liver? Did it affect my reproductive organs? Kind of what all actually happened there? And could I have done something different? Really changing my diet, maybe using herbs to kill parasites or detox, something like that. All of these things that since then I have now come to realize, like, oh my gosh, these are like the foundational things that we need to be doing rather than just taking that jackhammer of steroids to it, kind of supporting that body at a foundational level. So I really feel like that's kind of guided me and pushed me to where I am now and what I am so passionate about doing and helping women.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that story. And especially when you're a child going through the medical system, you don't really have that full autonomy yet. And even when you are an adult, like I went through the health system as an adult and with a pharmacist degree in tow, and you sort of trust the way that you've been taught and the conventional system, but then you see that not only do they sometimes not have all the answers, sometimes they don't have many choices, right? Or many solutions. And sometimes those solutions come with a lot of side effects and risks.
Yeah.
So you really, you're between a rock and a hard place a lot of the times, like having to choose, like, okay, I guess there are no good choices, so I'm just going to go with this choice, which I know is not ideal. And that's where I think it's so important to seek answers outside the box, so to speak. And at the same time, it's not to say that one way is better than the other. It's just when you have more choices in front of you, you can really make that informed decision, which is what we're always looking for.
Right. Yeah, like thinking about it too is how you said going through the medical system. It was quite traumatic as a child because there was, not only was I on medication a lot, there was a lot of blood draws, different surgeries, procedures, biopsies. I even remember one weekend we had to go to the hospital in the city because they were having this big conference or something with, I don't know, 40, 50 doctors. So I was sitting in a hospital, a room, and they were just cycling through, examining me and all of that for the entire day. And as a kid, I didn't understand why they were doing so much poking and prodding. So I think really it comes down to, I want to teach women how to, like you said, make their own health decisions and understand the symptoms, understand the signals they're getting from their body to be able to support at a foundational level. And then if medication or, surgery or something is really warranted, then we go for that, but start with the support first.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think symptoms are really, really important. It's like you said, this is the way that your body knows to communicate with you. If there's a symptom, it's there to be like an alarm system for you and to say, okay, this is an alert, like something is going on. We have to look deeper into that. And there's a difference between the conventional allopathic model. A lot of times they do worry about the symptoms, but their goal is to really make them go away, even if that's just masking them or covering them up, but not really looking deeper into seeing, like, why are those symptoms there in the first place, right? So I think that's kind of the missing piece that a lot of the times that should be the goal. And yet the primary goal seems to be, all right, get the symptoms to go away. And then we just kind of like forget about, oh, there was a problem in the first place that created these symptoms. Like, we need to go those layers deeper. So in your case, Dr. Robinson, what was it that made you seek out pharmacy specifically and kind of shaped your earlier career experiences?
So I think having had this medical experience, I really knew that I wanted to help people with their health. But I don't know if it was sort of the trauma from the system. I was always like, I don't want to deal with blood or people and their bodies, but if I can optimize their medications and their medicines and help them in that way, that was something that I really felt like I could do. And I'm very analytical. I pay attention to detail. And so pharmacy to me was a really great choice.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I can also relate to that. And I see that with a lot of colleagues as well. And so what was your early career life like when you decided to do the Army services, and then you decided to do CVS, and then you decided to do FMU? Like, what prompted all of those changes for you?
Yeah. So the program that I went through for pharmacy was a 6-year program. And about 2 years through, one of my friends was like, hey, we should join the Army. We should do ROTC. And I was like, okay, that might be cool. They pay for your school and everything. So we went ahead and did it. And as soon as I graduated, within a few months, I was then active duty. So I moved to San Antonio, Texas, where I had my first duty station. And, there was some Army things that I had to do, but most of what I did focused on being in the hospital pharmacy. So I got to do a lot of like outpatient pharmacy. I did a little bit of inpatient experience, but my favorite was working with the Wounded Warrior Transition Unit. So I got to be somewhat autonomous. I worked with some of the other MDs in the office, but I would meet one-on-one with some of these wounded warriors and go over their medications with them, which was good because, trying to see like, is there anything that's interacting? Is there any side effect or symptom that you're having that's because of something that you're taking? I feel like now I go a lot deeper into health, but for me, that was going deep at the time. I really enjoyed that. And I liked just having that time to talk to somebody one-on-one. So I was in, 6 years active duty. And at that point, I had my second child and decided that I was going to get out of the service and move back home. So I did that, and I wanted a pharmacy job that was part-time, decent hours, so that I could still focus on taking care of my children as well. And I really liked the job security that I had at CVS. Was I, completely fulfilled in my job and satisfied? I wouldn't go that far, but it was a good time. It was a good experience. I still got to work one-on-one with people in the community because it was a smaller pharmacy. So I did like that. But I remember this one customer, him and his wife would always come in, and they were an older couple, and he would not sugarcoat anything. And one day he said, "Man, these prices are so high. How can you work here knowing that we're just all getting price gouged on all of this?" And I really took offense to that. I was like, I'm trying to do my best. I'm trying to support my family. But it really stuck with me because it kind of opened my eyes to look around and see like nobody's getting better. Like they're lucky if they're maintaining their level of health. Nobody's getting better. And so that really stuck with me. And I kind of started to think, like, how long am I going to do this? So fast forward probably like a year or so, and my brother-in-law is also a pharmacist. And he started talking to me about gut health and how he was, changing his diet and doing different things and starting to feel better. And I was like, what in the, like, I'd never heard anything like that. I never heard anything about that in pharmacy school, but it really intrigued me. And so I started, he sent me some links to look at. I started looking into it and seeing the results that some people were getting just by working on their gut, losing weight, anxiety going away, periods getting better, thyroid issues resolving. Like I was just like, I didn't even know you could get better from any of those things. So, I went down the rabbit hole and I started to kind of apply some of those things to myself as well. And, at the beginning of this process, I would have thought I was a pretty healthy person, but then looking at my symptoms and like taking an honest look at what I was really dealing with day to day, including my periods, which were absolutely terrible, I, was learning more and more, continuing to go down the rabbit hole. And I was like, 2020 hit. That was the last straw. I was like, I can't, in good faith, keep doing this and vaccinating and doing all the things that, as I learned more, that I just didn't agree with. And so I decided to get certified at Functional Medicine University to be able to be a practitioner. And my uncle is a chiropractor. And I was talking to him before I actually finished the training. And he was like, well, why don't you just get certified and then just come work? You can have an office in my clinic. And so that was like, done deal. I'm in, so that was when was that? Beginning of 2021. So this is like year 4 for me of, seeing people one-on-one and just working on foundational health. And gosh, some of the success stories are just so great. I love it. It's my life, It's probably your life too.
Yeah, yeah. What an amazing way to transform your career and reignite your passion, because you got into this to help people because of your own journey and your own health experience. And now you get to go all the way around and be your own first client, which I think we all kind of are that are on this path, and get to pick up the pieces that we just sometimes, like you said, take as normal. We take this, lack of energy, lack of drive, lack of motivation, dissatisfaction, being exhausted, having painful periods, whatever the case may be. And we just kind of take it as, oh, this is how it is. This is how everybody is. This is the average person's health journey. But that is not normal. That is not optimal. Just because it's common doesn't make it normal, and definitely doesn't make it optimal. So this is an opportunity to really be the models for our patients when we walk the talk. So I completely resonate with that as well. So Dr. Robinson, sounds like you had amazing synchronicity with people in your family and friends. And I think that's another thing that people may take for granted, that your network is your net worth, they say. So it's talking about your passion and even sharing your pain points and your problems can really help find solutions from the most unlikeliest of places, and also the people just closest around to you that may be resonating, may have solutions waiting. So I love that you got an opportunity to network and find your niche very close to home, so to speak. So tell us a little bit about how you were first starting out and developing this practice and this business. And then, you can definitely share some success stories as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, actually my second client, I guess, because I was my first, was my sister, and she, had all of the common things: thyroid, anxiety, gut issues. And she'd been married for a little while, and I think she had wanted to get pregnant and was not, after maybe 6 to 9 months or so, and this was just running her life. And so she decided to come and see me, and we worked on her gut, we worked on liver, thyroid, really all the things with a comprehensive approach. So nutrition, for sure. We were trying to optimize her sleep, trying to work in some other techniques to really regulate her anxiety and figure out, is there anything that we can take out or adjust your routine to help with this anxiety? Because that's where I think a lot of women get hung up, is when the idea is brought up, well, is there something you can change? No, I'm busy. I have this, I have my job, I have this and this and this, and the kids have all their sports and all the things, and we can't adjust. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you can't go on like this for much longer if you're having all of these problems already. So something's got to give somewhere. So oftentimes you need to really sit down and be honest with yourself about what all you're doing and what absolutely needs to be there right now. Because if you're having all of these symptoms, again, like we just talked about, this is your body telling you, I can't handle this. We're in survival mode, and we can't be in survival mode forever. So probably, I want to say it was about a year that I worked with her. And, she did the hard work. She did end up taking a break from the job that she was in because we figured out that that was the main source of stress for her. So she did take a break from that for a while and just focused on healing. But gosh, did she get so much better? Like her gut was better, her skin. She had lost weight. She got pregnant with her first with her daughter. So it's just like all of these things were, it was just such a life changer for her. And so I think in the last few years, my protocols have definitely evolved to be, to really identify patterns of symptoms now that I've seen a few people. So I do, some lab testing and things when it's needed, but I also feel like symptoms are very telling. And once you've seen so many people over a few years, to me, it's like, well, this pattern is telling me that we probably need to rebuild your gut. So I don't know that we need to, go in and do all the testing on everything, but definitely it's more, I use it to kind of hone in and if there's something like if I'm torn between two directions, well then let's do some testing to figure out what the best thing is for you as an individual right now.
Yeah, definitely. I have to agree as well. I think the real epidemic and perhaps pandemic as well is the culture that we're swimming in, right? The waters that we swim in, which is like the constant drive to be productive and to do all the things and to be go, go, go. And like that expectation by itself is not sustainable, especially for women, especially if we're of childbearing years and we're trying to either have kids or be present for our kids. It's like there's only so many pieces of us that are available to give to certain things. And I think, like you said, just kind of managing those expectations and having that honesty, real talk with yourself or with a practitioner, with a trusted person to really understand those priorities and understanding that there's different seasons for different things in life. So yeah, like the saying, you can have it all. Like, yeah, maybe you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time indefinitely, right? Like there's a pattern that we also have to kind of get into our program, get into our system, because everything in nature has a pattern and a season, and we're no different. So what has been like the biggest hurdle that you feel like you have to overcome with patients or clients? I would imagine it has to do with like this changing a habit or behavioral pattern, because that's definitely been mine as well. And like, what are your biggest clinical tips for being with a client, sitting with a client and helping them to have like this real talk?
Yeah, so I would say probably one of the biggest hurdles is with the society that we live in, we think that as soon as we make a change, we're going to feel better within a week or two. And so we're so programmed for that instant gratification, right? And so that probably is the biggest hurdle, is getting people to realize that, you're coming in here to see me. You've had these chronic problems for 5, 10, 15 years or more. Don't expect your body to fix everything in a month or 3 months or maybe even 6 months. Like these deep healing things take time, So that's probably the biggest hurdle, I would say. What was the second part of the question?
Yeah, the second part is like, how do you manage these expectations with clients? What can you tell us as far as like clinical pearls or advice that you would give to somebody right now who may be struggling or finding it challenging to take something off their plate and to prioritize their healing?
hmm So what I always think about is that people make time for what they want. So that is probably the most convicting question that I, will even have to ask myself too when I'm busy doing things and I'm starting to notice that, it's like almost you can just feel it in your body, like things are just not right. So it takes stopping and sitting down and really thinking about, you know, is this something that I want? Is this something that is good for me at this point in my life right now? And I feel like we innately just kind of know that. It just takes time to stop and just like sit in silence and just think about, what's going on right now? How am I feeling? And what can I change to kind of bring things back into balance?
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree that this is why the coaching industry is so powerful, right? We, as a coach myself, we know that every individual has their own ideas, they have their own desires, they have their own wisdom. And it's our job as a coach not to tell them what to do, but to ask the questions that will get them to know what to do and figure out
hmm
what to do. Because it's so much more powerful when the client themselves is self motivated or comes to their own conclusion. I think about it also like a derivation, like in math, we like derive a specific rule, right? And it's like that's the power of it. When you derive it, you know it's true. And so
hmm
coming to your own conclusions and making that be your decision as a client is so much more powerful than if somebody just tells you, an authority figure of some sort, right? Just tells you, okay, here's what you have to do. And then what's in between the taking the advice and like actually putting that into practice and putting that into your life, right?
hmm
So the other thing I wanted to ask you is what would be something that you wish every woman knew, like to improve their health?
hmm So I guess I'm thinking specifically like period health, because really that is so far from optimized for a lot of women. And that is also something that I feel like if you're not very holistic minded and you have, you know, painful, heavy periods or erratic cycles or just pelvic pain in general, and you go see a conventional doctor, um, you would be lucky to get an ultrasound. Most likely, you would just be offered hormonal contraception to help with the pain, to help regulate your cycle, sometimes even just for headaches and acne. Um, Especially young women are put on it. And I would just really encourage every woman to just get an app to start tracking your cycle. Start with that so you at least know, do you have a rhythm or not? But also know too that if things are not right, if you are in a lot of pain, if you have mood swings and anxiety, that's probably a hormonal issue. That's not in and of itself a hormonal issue. Hormones reflect what is going on upstream in the body. So what I would encourage women to look at is what is your gut health like? How do you feel when you eat food? Do are you constipated? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have gas? Do you have reflux? That's where I would really start when it comes to period problems, is what is going on in the gut, because I've seen it so many times that, change our diet, change how we're eating, take out the processed food, the sugar, the caffeine, or at least limit those things so that the gut can heal. And then within a few months, we're starting to regulate the hormones much better on our own and not just, again, masking the symptoms, or sometimes even masking bigger problems that a few years down the road could end up being real issues if we don't address them from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great point. So could you walk us through like a typical first intake session, and then also the process that you take each client through? So let's say somebody comes to you and they just say, I need help with my painful periods. So
Yeah.
set the stage for us.
Yeah. So before I even will see somebody in the office, I have them apply to be a client. So this is just a very short, maybe 10-question form, just to see, kind of what you're dealing with. Are they, what is their readiness to change? Are they willing to change their diet? Are they willing to invest the time and money that it takes to get results? Because I've also, in the beginning, before I started doing that, would just work with anybody, and then found that, maybe that person wasn't really ready to do what they needed to do. So I feel like this, having them apply to be a client ensures that this is a really good fit for them to work with me, because if they're not in this 100%, I don't want them to do something that they're not ready to do. So once they do that, I'll usually do just a short discovery call with them to talk about, like, okay, here's the pricing, here's, kind of the appointment structure. And if, then at that point, I'll have them fill out some really detailed health history forms for me. So this is like their story in a nutshell, everything that they're dealing with, their medications. We get into nutrition, symptoms of, looking for what their toxin load is, what their stress level is like, looking at all these foundational, foundational tenets of health. So then when they come into the office to see me for the first time, we're establishing care, looking at everything that they filled out. And I'm looking at it from the lens of, okay, what is this person up against as far as their gut health, toxin level, and stress? And so I go through and sort of identify and bring to light some things that they might be doing or ways that they're living that's contributing to this health issue. So at the end of that, we'll usually establish health goals so that they're on the same page with me. This is exactly what they want. And it's kind of interesting to me is that usually they will come in with one thing, like, oh, my terrible periods, or I have headaches or something. And as we work through establishing their health goals, it ends up that there is actually multiple areas that they really want to work on. It's just, like you said, it's been their normal for so long that they don't even realize it's a problem. So at the end of that, I'll usually recommend some labs that are targeted to looking at certain things that we want to look at. And then their next appointment is going over labs, and then we're starting a protocol with, probably some nutrition, exercise, maybe supplements. I try to hit as many areas as we can without overwhelming the person. And that is a hard skill that I think we're just refining as practitioners as we go, because everybody's different. And so it really takes intuition and experience to make a really good protocol for someone as an individual. And the other part of that is really taking into account, what they're saying. What do you feel like you can do right now? What do you feel like is a change that you can incorporate that's not going to overwhelm you?
Yeah, that is such a good point as well. The bio-individuality of a person and their preferences and their goals and their perspective, and having them be the driver in their health journey, not just kind of like a passenger, that we talked about before with the coaching distinction. Yeah, and having them lead that, the expectation that I mentioned before, having a discussion about what they expect and what you have seen from experience, so that you can manage that journey, and create those results in the time frame that you're both expecting it. So I think that is really, really important. And that's what I've learned in my journey and my practice as well. Cool. So how long does a person typically work with you? You mentioned you worked with your sister for about a year. Like,
Mhm.
what would you recommend as like a time frame that somebody can expect to come in and do this whole process of discovering what is leading to their condition, and then all the changes that it might require to reverse or
Mhm.
mitigate and modulate what's going on?
Yeah. So it really is quite individualized. However, I usually tell women plan on working with me for about 6 to 12 months. I do have some that I've see longer, and then, maybe they're doing better for a while, and then, habits start to slip, and they're like, hey, can I come back in and do a quick follow-up so we can get back on track? Sure, we can do that. But I'm expecting results a lot quicker than 6 months, though. And it's usually not everything gets better at once. It's usually within the first couple of weeks, we're noticing changes in digestion. We're noticing more energy. Maybe skin issues are starting to clear up. And then within a few months, we're maintaining those things, but even more energy. Maybe our headaches are much better. Usually our periods are a lot lighter and easier. So it's definitely a stepwise process. Um, that usually will take most women about 6 to 12 months to really get solidified and then get in a maintenance plan that they can overall maintain their gains.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense too. So we mentioned the painful periods is a symptom that people can usually identify that something is wrong. And then one of the things they could do is do the cycle mapping, or maybe see a practitioner such as yourself. Um, and the root cause for that period pain could be different, right? It could be different hormonal imbalances, like you said. There could be different diagnoses that people got, like endometriosis
Mhm.
or adenomyosis or PCOS, and lots of other different things. So, what's your approach to navigating all of these diagnoses and the symptoms? Maybe if you can give us like one thing that maybe they all have in common that's overarching that you feel like makes a really big difference when people approach it, or what's your biggest approach to having this type of imbalance show up?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry, it cut out halfway in.
Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah. So maybe if you can give us a clinical tip to when women come to you with these different diagnoses that
Mhm.
have the period pain or some other cycle imbalance, is there one thing that you can tell them, like across the board, that you have seen be very effective? Or is it like maybe give us a few different things that you've seen be really
Yeah.
effective?
Yeah. So I would say you always want to start with diet, honestly, because that is something that is most in your control. And if you're not, if you haven't taken a lot of supplements and things like that, I really feel like those are better to incorporate with a practitioner, so you can really see and monitor how your body is doing with that. But anybody can change their diet, I feel like. So that's a pretty safe thing to start with. So the things most effective to make um, really a difference across the board, gluten free is probably my top one as far as what women um, are telling me that they improve with. Gluten is very inflammatory there. Um, processed fruit, processed food, and sugar also very inflammatory. That cutting those things out, they'll say that they feel a lot better, less pain, less just I guess almost like congestion or puffiness in that area. I would say those are probably my biggest things as far as food. Exercise is also really good at regulating hormones, estrogen, cortisol, progesterone. So that is probably another thing. And it doesn't have to be like you need to go and get a gym membership and start doing HIIT training on all of this. Like, just start with what you know that you can do. Start with just walking a few times a week. And then once that's, a habit that's part of your routine, start adding strength training in. You'll be so surprised at the difference that makes in how you feel, in, what your mood is like. And then you'll start to notice a difference in your period. Again, hormones usually take a couple of months to really see the difference of changes that you've made, but just be patient and trust the process and know that your body is working on things and starting to heal.
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, I think you shouldn't go jump into a gym membership or do crazy HIIT or any other like fat crazy diets you hear about, or lifestyle or movement plans. I think
Mhm.
being sustainable and consistent is so much more important. And to me, one of the biggest things is like structuring your day, structuring your night routine, your evening routine, so that you get enough sleep, so you can wake up early, so then you can fit in the exercise or whatever other things you're doing, and structuring your week to make sure you go food shopping for healthy foods, and just kind of really taking care of like these basic logistics can be so important.
Yeah, and there's a huge mindset piece to all of that too, because our brain inherently doesn't want us to change anything because it wants to keep us safe, right? So a lot of it, when women are like, oh, I tried to exercise, but I just didn't have time, or I'm really trying with the diet, but it's just so hard because I go to all of these parties and different functions at work and they have all this food. And I need to be like, yes, but you need to start telling your brain things when it says, you're too tired for exercise. You need to come back and say, exercise is going to give me energy. Exercise is going to make me feel good. And then with the food, I'm going to make a choice that's going to make me feel good rather than thinking, oh, I'm so deprived. I can't have the cake or the cookie or the alcoholic drink. You need to change your thoughts and think, I want to choose these things because these are good for me. These are going to make me feel good. This is what I want. I do not want that.
Yeah, yeah, your mind can definitely play tricks on you, and we can go into a whole rabbit hole with this one.
Mhm.
And I I think this is like number one is tapping in, and this goes back to what you said, like if somebody's motivated to change, if somebody's committed to change, that is tied to your mindset, your readiness to change. So it's like sometimes you have to get to this point, and then sometimes you can have help like coaches and practitioners or like self-help books or personal development, what have you.
Mhm.
But this is coming to light, like all the science that we now have backing the like power of neuro regeneration, of changing the way your brain is literally wired. And it just takes repetition because like you said, it took years, right? Months, decades to get you to have these issues and to have the kind of brain that you have and the kind of patterns that you're experiencing. So it is going to take repetition and consistency to rewire all of that and to make these little steps and to finally see those differences. So I want to thank you, Dr. Robinson, for an amazing interview here. And you've given us some wonderful clinical pearls along the way as well. And if you have time, I'd love to do a rapid fire round of questions with you as well.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So question number one, what's your number one advice for somebody to improve their quality of life right now?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. I feel like diet, honestly, like is the number one thing. Like if you can honestly like processed food, cutting that out or restricting that across the board, no matter what you're dealing with, that is guaranteed to give you some really great results in pretty much every aspect of health. So that would probably be my number one thing.
Love it. Yeah. And easier on your wallet probably as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Question number 2, what has been maybe like a pleasant surprise from starting this practice and building your business that you didn't expect?
Oh boy. I would say, I expected success stories, but just in this last year, probably, or maybe the last 6 months, maybe like 4 or 5 pregnancies that we did not expect. And it was not, different situations too. Like somebody had never had a child before, others it was, dealing with secondary infertility, a couple others that were 6 or 9 months post endometriosis excision surgery that they had expected to get pregnant, right away, and it just wasn't happening, and started to work on their gut, and literally within a few months they're okay, we have to stop your protocol because you're pregnant. That was pretty unexpected for me, but always such a joy to get those messages, and it's usually like, oh, Dr. Robinson, I just found out I'm pregnant. I haven't told my husband yet. And it's like, oh man, yes, we did it. Awesome.
Love it. And then what's a fun fact about yourself or a favorite hobby of yours that maybe people don't know about?
Let's see. I love cooking from scratch. And I didn't used to be a huge cook, but this journey that I've been on, with my health and helping others with their health, I'm always trying to find new ways to cook things that we were used to having as kids that were just total trash, and making them into dishes that taste pretty close to what we're used to, but without all the junk, and using more whole, unprocessed natural foods. And it, like, seeing the difference too in how everything tastes and how I feel after eating it versus maybe what I used to feel, which was bloated and tired. And now it's like things are just digesting, and I don't feel any discomfort, and I have energy, and this is great. Like, that's probably one of the things I really, really like to do, that and traveling. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's the real reward, right? When you actually enjoy how you feel after you eat the food, not like the quick dopamine hit that you might feel from a little bit of junk processed foods or sugars or something like that. And it takes that reframing, and then when you really feel that difference, you don't want to go back to the other stuff, the cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people get in touch with you, learn more about your work? And I think you had a gift for the audience as well that you could share about.
Yes. So I have a website. It's lucernafmllc.com. So they can go to that to get information on me, or if they're local. So I'm in the St. Louis, Missouri area. So if anybody that's local, you can apply to be a client, apply to work with me there. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but I've focused more of my energy on Facebook because I can't do all of the social media. So that is Lucerna Functional Medicine on Facebook as well. And then the gift for the audience that I shared with you is my No More Pain period guide. So it is a holistic guide to like starting to fix your period within a couple months. So there's some recommendations as far as some diet changes that you could make, kind of a basic detox your house and your environment, kind of some ideas in there, and then ways to mitigate stress so that we're kind of hitting on each of those 3 areas to help your hormones start to heal.
I love it. I just pulled up the guide and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we'll have all those links for you all in the show notes. And I want to thank you again, Dr. Robinson, for being here. And I hope to continue chatting and collaborating on something. This was really fun.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Holistic Pharmacy Podcast, and I truly hope you enjoyed the show. If you learned something useful in this episode, please consider giving the show a 5-star rating and a sincere review so that more people can find it, or share it with a friend directly. To get in touch with me, you can find me on social media by looking up my name, Marina Buksov, or email me at marina@rawfork.com. Take good care and see you soon.